Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing the entire Fallout franchise on the RTX 3060. We'll do the originals, Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics, then 3, 4, 76, and New Vegas. Mostly I'll be targeting 4K in the usual games like Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Then on Fallout 4 and 76, I'll be targeting 1440p because some sections with lots of foliage like to drop below 60 when using the 4K resolution. I consider this card more of a 1440p card, at least in my opinion. So let's get into it and discuss. So first, Fallout 1, and this one, the higher the resolution, the smaller the UI. There's a scaling 2x option that we're enabling, but it's still very tiny UI. My advice is to drop it to 1080p, just because you can see stuff when you lower the resolution to 1080p with 2 times scaling. So now going into the game, as you can see now the UI is fine, to say it in some way. It doesn't look super tiny. This is due to the 2x thing, and as you can see the frame rate looks weird. It's like 30 something when you're standing still, but you move the mouse and it gets into the 100 FPS range. I think that's a bug with the FPS counter, so ignore it, because the game feels completely fine, super smooth, at least when it comes to mouse movement. I kicked a rat. Okay. So the first game is fine, just make sure to drop it to 1080p and use 2 times upscaling, just for those pixels to not be super tiny, because the UI, again, will be like 3 pixels wide, you won't see anything. So let's jump into the next one. Fallout 2, this one, just like the previous one, enables scaling 2 times and do 1080p. If you do 4K, it will be super tiny UI that you cannot see. It will be something like this, like that meme, and we do not want that. Welcome to Fallout 2. As you can see outdoors, for some reason we have bars at the left and right of the screen, but once we get indoors, funnily enough, is when it's going to use the entire screen. So again, if you select 4K, you're basically going to have a way smaller UI that you cannot read. And if you move the mouse, you get like 1000 FPS, but if you stay still, it drops into the 30s. I think, again, that's a UI bug for the FPS counter. So yeah, just like the first one, it works fine. But again, you need to lower that resolution to 1080p to have a good UI experience. So keep that in mind. But otherwise, completely fine, uses almost no GPU and CPU. Fallout Tactics, so this one doesn't have a scaling option like the other ones. So you gotta select 720p to be able to actually read the UI. At 4K is basically ants for UI. And the FPS counter doesn't work on this one, but it's completely fine. No slowdown whatsoever, it works just fine. The UI looks better than in the previous games, at least in my opinion. So no issues whatsoever, but the problem is, again, no FPS counter, which, whatever, it's an old game. And there's no scaling options, so you gotta use 720p for the UI to be actually useful and readable. Let's jump into the next one. Now we're doing Fallout 3 in the launcher. As you can see, it says I have a GeForce 7900 GS. This is because I had to install a mod for the game not to crash when I launch it, basically. Make sure VSync is enabled. This game is locked to 60 anyway. 4K, let's put 8 times MSAA, maximum isotropic filtering, and everything on the highest settings. So let's get into the game. Welcome to Fallout 3. This is a very easy game to run, even at 4K. As you can see, we're using less than half the GPU. I mean, the GPU is just saying, whatever. I can render it, no problem. And there's many mods that you can install. This is why I just installed one that is for stability. Again, link in the description. It fixes lots of bugs and things that are wrong with the game by default, like not launching after clicking play. That's the main one, I would say. But there is ENV mods, texture mods, I mean endless stuff that you can do to this game. And on the GPU side, we're just fine. I mean, with the MSAA 8 times, there's no aliasing whatsoever, especially at 4K. If you're doing 1440p, 1080p, something like that, it'll still be locked to 60 FPS, so keep that in mind. And let's use bats here because we need to do it. I mean, it's part of what I usually do in this game. I always love that you can actually do this and heads start rolling, literally. So yeah, no issues with this one. Some stutters and crashes that you can fix by just downloading the mods I told you that are in the description. Just follow the links, copy and paste, you're good to go. So let's jump into the next one. Fallout New Vegas. For this one I installed multiple mods. These are the ones that I have installed. It's not a lot, it's the absolute minimum, I would say. Anti-crashing mods, visual enhancements mods, and blood texture mods. That's basically it. Then when it comes to the game itself, go to options, 4K, 8 times MSAA, and everything on the highest possible settings. Welcome to Fallout New Vegas. This one is also not demanding at all in comparison to the newer ones. 60 FPS, there's no way to go higher because it breaks the game basically. And there's some tiny mods. Again, just like I said in the previous game, you can mod the hell out of it. And it's alright. You have way better graphics and the GPU can handle it just fine. I mean, the GPU is chilling at 60 to 70% without using its max clock speed. And I like that this game has iron sights, but the community for this one is very active on the mods department. So you shouldn't have a problem adding graphical enhancement mods. Again, there's so many of them. I didn't have time to download more than the ones that I did, just because of the sheer size of them. Doinks. I gained karma somehow. And we are... Boom, headshot. He just doesn't care. Okay. And there's bombs as well. Again, I recommend you download the anti-crash mods to have a consistent experience. And as soon as I said that, the game crashed. So, out of memory. What? Oh man. And also download the 4GB aware patch that I also left in the description, that I forgot to install. Quick update, I downloaded the 4GB patch that I forgot to apply, and now the game uses more system RAM. So it was stuck like at 7.5 gigabytes. Now it's okay. It can use like 8 gigabytes or more, which is awesome. We had to patch the executable, again, link in the description, to avoid those weird crashes. So after that, you should be good. No unexpected crashes. Unless that's something that commonly happens for some reason. So yeah, that's my advice. Let's jump into the next one. For Fallout 4, I'm using a bunch of mods actually. All of these. Again, links in the description if you're interested in some of those. These are mostly quality of life improvements. Then when it comes to settings, I think the 3060 is more of a 1440p card. So we're doing 1440p on this one with the highest settings, except in weapon debris because I had more crashes. Also the view distance should be on the highest. So let's get into the game. Welcome to Fallout 4, again 1440p, highest settings, mods installed, and as you can see I'm locked to 72 FPS. You might be asking yourself why. Well, this game has force VSync, and if you have a 60Hz monitor, it'll lock to 60, same if you have a 120. I happen to have a 144Hz display, and this will lock it to half the refresh rate, so we are locked to 72 FPS. And trust me, no matter what I tried, the game was locked at 72. I edited config files and installed mods, nothing seems to work. So yeah, we're locked to 72. The thing is, if you have a worse CPU than the one that I have, maybe an old i3, an old i5, maybe from the 3rd generation, You're probably going to have drops below 6 FPS in this location. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, the game easily uses our GPU. It's using like half of it. You might say, oh man, it's using very little GPU. Well, as soon as you get into lots of rain, fog and all that, it's going to drop. So keep that in mind. This part is more CPU heavy, to say it in some way. Also, the game doesn't know how to use VRAM properly sometimes. But the mods that I installed affect basically the effects on screen, especially when it comes to weather effects. So now that I showed you this, let's try some other plays. Talking about resolution, I'm targeting 1440p because, well, I think it's the most common resolution for people that use this card. You can also do 4K, you need to lower stuff from ultra to high to maintain 60s. So it's doable, but I would recommend sticking to 1440p, especially if you're trying to get into the 70s FPS range.
We got somebody up here.
So yeah. Again, it's locked to 72 because it grabs half the refresh rate. But 4K is completely doable. Just make sure, again, to lower those settings to high instead of ultra. And also lower the cut rays from high to low. And the GPU shouldn't have an issue with 4K 60, native 4K. But if you for some reason managed to unlock the FPS somehow, I couldn't for the life of me figure it out. Just with 1440p, you're probably going to have hundreds of FPS, no problem. Oh yeah, that's Fallout 4. I think it's time to do Fallout 76, but the Deathclaw basically got me there. LOL. Boom, down. And finally Fallout 76. So this one we're using the same settings as Fallout 4. It runs worse than Fallout 4. I kept access on high because on ultra sometimes it used all my video memory for no reason whatsoever. It's also locked to 72 FPS, so half my refresh rate. So if you have a 60Hz or 120Hz monitor, it's probably going to be 60. No mods installed on this one, and as you can see, yeah, here it is. GPU usage can spike up, especially when there's cut rays. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they doesn't. Or they don't, better said. And as long as there is foliage, the performance on the GPU side will drop. Okay, no more ammo, hang on. Oh, okay, all my guns are broken. Gotcha. And if you move the camera out, I don't know why, but here it drops below 60 when I do this. Especially when I'm getting attacked by more than 2 enemies. I don't know, it's just weird. I just don't understand this game really. So yeah, you can get mostly over 60, but just like the other game, usually when you go over 60, the engine doesn't like that. I'm happy that there is an FOV slider on this one now, at least. But I don't get those drops below 60. It just... sometimes there's nonsense, let's leave it at that. Anyway, that's all for the Fallout franchise. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did revisiting this, but on a 3060. You can also do 4K on this one if you want to. It'll drop below 60 a little bit more often, especially close to transparencies. So maybe try medium settings. But then on the other games, even Fallout 4, 4K is a non-issue for this card, especially if you're playing without any mods that affect visuals. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, on this card I would recommend 1440p for most people. You probably don't have a 4K monitor if you have this card. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys.